Over the past 2 years, there has been a surge of refugee claims at the U.S.-Canada border, with just over 7,000 claimants in 2016 alone. But in recent months, we have seen hundreds of asylum seekers taking the long trek, walking for miles, crossing the Manitoba border into Canada, fleeing what many fear is a changing climate towards immigrants in the U.S. I'm joined by Major Robert Kerr of the Prairie Division of the Salvation Army, an organization taking in many of these refugee claimants. Welcome, Major Kerr.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
The past weekend, we saw over 20 people cross the border into Emerson, Manitoba, seeking asylum. How has the Salvation Army been responding to that?
Well, right now we have 25 people who are staying with us who are asylum seekers. They've come in over the last few days. Some of them, a group of 8, arrived on Friday morning. The rest arrived on Sunday. And we have basically been able to make space available for them. It's in our booth center here in Winnipeg. It's a large facility we have. It's got a lot of space. And we've been able to take some space and set it aside to be used for those who are coming to us. We work in partnership with the Welcome Place, which is the immigration services in Winnipeg. And they contacted us to say that with this influx, they weren't able to accommodate them to house them somewhere. So we're working in partnership with them to provide this service, which we do on a daily basis with the people in Winnipeg. And so we're just extending that service to people who have come into Canada from the U.S.
Now, I know the Salvation Army does this very well, and taking in people, and especially during hard times. But I wonder about Emerson, because we are hearing a lot about just how they've felt stretched through this influx of people. Have you heard anything from just the community in Emerson and how they're feeling about this constant arrival of people?
Well, we're not in Emerson, so I can't speak to it directly. All I've heard is probably the same things you have on the news. Of course, being here where it's very local news. So we're hearing the same things, that there's a lot of traffic. There's people, in Emerson, but we're not down there ourselves in Emerson. We've been just providing the services here in Winnipeg once the people arrive in Winnipeg.
And so once they arrive in Winnipeg, and you, as you said, you have beds for them, what is the next step for many of these refugee claimants?
So really what the process is once they cross the border, once they're into Canada, they're making contact with the people in Emerson. They're taken to Canada Border Services where they're processed and whatever that looks like. Then they come up to Winnipeg. They land at Welcome Place where they will be registered. They'll know who they are, because it's Welcome Place that's going to process the paperwork. Once that's happened, they come to us. We give them a bed, we give them a place to sleep, a room. We give them food, et cetera, and then we make sure that they get back to Welcome Place when they need to, so they can start the paperwork. From there, they're going to do some paperwork that's going to allow them to stay in Canada, and there's whatever that process is. We're really not involved in the process itself,
Okay.
but we know there's paperwork that has to happen that allows them to stay, and then they become, they go through whatever the immigration process is for Canada.
What do you see the role of the church being during this time, again, as we see refugee claimants coming across our border? What is the role of the church at this moment?
Well, for us, this is the same role that we believe the church has any day of the week. We're there to love our neighbor. We're there to realize that our neighbor is not simply the person who lives next door. In cases of vulnerability, I think we're to be our brother's keeper. As we learn in the Old Testament, we are to be kind and hospitable to the aliens, the orphans, and the widows. And I think that those were the vulnerable people of the time, and so the church is supposed to care for the vulnerable people. And I think in this case we see people coming in who need help, who need encouragement and welcoming arms, and that's what we're trying to do. And I think that's the role of the church in all of this.
Is there a lot of fear that you're hearing from these refugee claimants as they cross the border?
There is fear. They're hesitant to talk to just about anybody because, they know they're crossing the border illegally. They also know that there's a process. So there's a little bit of fear until they are able to understand that the process they've started has made them able to stay in Canada legally. that once they've registered with Canada Border Services, they are allowed to be here and they don't have to fear that because now they're in the system. They're starting a process. But there is a little bit of a fear, and you can imagine these folks are coming from along the way some dangerous countries, Somalia, Djibouti. They've left those countries where they lived in fear. They've made great journeys to get to the United States, and now they're fearing again that they're going to be sent home. So yeah, they are living in some fear. And our hope and our goal at the Salvation Army is to alleviate some of that fear, help them understand that this is a safe place, they're welcome, and we're helping them to start a new journey.
Thank you so much, Major Kerr.
Thank you.